the Surge 2. The Surge 2 is a perfect example of how AA games can outshine many of today's bloated AAA titles. It takes the familiar Souls-like formula and cranks it up with a unique sci-fi twist focusing on brutal melee combat, tactical dismemberment, and deep customization. It doesn't try to be the flashiest game out there, it just sticks to what it does best, delivering a challenging, addictive experience without all the unnecessary fluff. The combat is where the Surge 2 really shines. It's fast, intense, and rewards precision. But what sets it apart from other Souls-likes is the targeting system. You don't just hack away at enemies, you aim for specific body parts. If you focus on armored limbs, you'll have a tough time, but if you target weaker spots, you can bring enemies down quicker. Even better. Chopping off limbs rewards you with blueprints and parts to craft better gear. Every fight feels like a puzzle. Do you go for a quick takedown or aim for that piece of armor you've been eyeing? The customization in the Surge 2 is top tier. You can build your character however you like, go heavy with powerful, slow strikes, or focus on speed and agility with dual weapons. The game throws a ton of weapons, armor, and implants at you, letting you experiment with different builds until you find what clicks. Every new piece of gear feels earned, and tweaking your loadout before heading into a tough fight is just as satisfying as the battles themselves. The setting is a refreshing change from the usual fantasy fare you see in this genre. Instead of dark castles and haunted forests, you're navigating Jericho City, a futuristic dystopia filled with deranged robots, rogue security forces, and nano-infected creatures. The city feels alive, with interconnected areas that reward exploration and plenty of secrets tucked away for those willing to look. It's not an overwhelming open world, it's compact, dense, and designed to pull you deeper into its atmosphere. The story is there if you want it, but it doesn't get in your way. You wake up in a crumbling city with only fragments of what happened before. There's a mystery to uncover, but the Surge 2 is more about the journey than the narrative. NPCs and data logs fill in the gaps, giving the world a sense of history, but the real thrill is in mastering its combat and overcoming the challenges it throws at you. A Plague Tale Requiem. A Plague Tale Requiem is proof that a focused, narrative-driven AA game can outshine a lot of flashy AAA titles. This sequel builds on everything that made A Plague Tale Innocence special, delivering an emotional, intense, and visually stunning experience. It follows the journey of Amisha and her younger brother Hugo as they try to escape the horrors of the Black Death, this time on an even bigger scale. The game's storytelling is a masterclass in pacing and character development. Amisha's struggle to protect Hugo while dealing with her own trauma makes for a gripping narrative that keeps you hooked from start to finish. The relationship between the siblings feels raw and real. Amisha isn't some perfect hero, she's just doing her best in an impossible situation, and Hugo's condition, tied to his mysterious connection with the plague-bearing rats, adds a layer of tension to every moment. The stealth gameplay is deeper this time around. Amisha has new tools and abilities, and she's far more capable in combat, though it's still not about charging headfirst into enemies. You need to pick your moments, sneak through heavily guarded areas, and use your environment to outsmart enemies. Whether it's distracting guards with thrown objects, extinguishing their torches to unleash a swarm of rats, or setting traps, every encounter feels like a puzzle you need to solve under pressure. And those rats? Yeah, they're back in terrifying numbers. The sheer scale of the rat swarms in Requiem is wild. They move like a wave of darkness, devouring everything in their path. There are moments where the only thing between you and death is a small circle of light, and it's both thrilling and nerve-wracking. These sequences keep you on the edge of your seat, forcing you to think fast and stay one step ahead of danger. Vampyr. Vampyr is one of those games that sneaks up on you. It's not perfect, but if you vibe with it, man, it'll hook you in. You play as Dr. Jonathan Reed, a doctor turned vampire trying to survive in a plague-ridden London. It's a weird mix balancing the Hippocratic Oath with the urge to drain people dry, but that's what makes it so interesting. The game isn't just about flashy combat, it's about choices, morality, and consequences that can get real heavy. The coolest part of Vampyr is how it puts you in tough situations. Everyone you you meet has a story, shopkeepers, nurses, homeless people, and you're always faced with this dilemma: do you help them or do you feed on them? Feeding gives you massive XP, making you way stronger, but it also comes with consequences. Kill too many people and entire districts fall apart, spiraling into chaos. But if you resist, the game becomes much harder. It's this constant push and pull. Do you stay true to your human side or give in to your vampire instincts? Combat is solid, but it's not the main focus. You've got melee weapons, vampire abilities, and guns, but it's all about managing your stamina and blood levels. Some fights are intense, especially when you're dealing with multiple enemies or vampire hunters, but it's not an action-heavy game like Devil May Cry or Bloodborne. It's more about survival and picking your battles carefully. When you do unleash your vampire powers, whether it's a shadowy dash or draining an enemy mid-fight, it feels so satisfying. What really makes Vampyr stand out is the atmosphere. London is gloomy, rainy, and downright eerie, with dark alleyways and plague victims coughing around every corner. The soundtrack is haunting, adding to the feeling that something bad could happen at any moment. It's the perfect setting for a game about vampires. It feels alive but also decaying, just like Jonathan himself. The story is engaging, especially if you like dialogue-heavy games. You'll spend a lot of time talking to characters, digging into their backstories, and figuring out how they fit into the bigger picture. There's also a detective element. You're piecing together clues about your patients and trying to find ways to heal them without giving in to your thirst. It's slow-paced, but it works if you're into narrative-driven games where your decisions really matter.
The curse of the goddess. It is the hunger in you, the need for blood.
Death's Door. Man, Death's Door really caught me off guard. I went in expecting a cute little indie game, and next thing I know, I'm completely hooked. You play as a tiny crow with a sword, out there reaping souls like it's just another day at the office. But it's not long before things go off the rails. Your next target disappears, and suddenly you're unraveling this weird, beautiful world full of secrets, lost souls, and crazy bosses. The vibe of this game is something else. It's got this melancholic charm, like, yeah, the whole thing revolves around death, but it's oddly hopeful too. And the characters? They're quirky in the best way. One minute, you're talking to a bard who's writing terrible songs about your adventures, and the next, you're in a weirdly touching conversation with a gravekeeper who just wants to be remembered. It's got a humor that sneaks up on you, and those little moments hit harder than you'd expect. One thing I really love about Death's Door is how it handles exploration. It's not this huge open world full of pointless checklists. It's compact, focused, and rewards curiosity. You unlock new abilities that make you think, wait, didn't I see something back there? And before you know it, you're backtracking, finding hidden areas and upgrades you didn't even know existed. There's something so satisfying about those little moments when you realize you can finally reach a place that was just out of reach earlier. And let's talk about the music for a second. It's beautiful. Seriously, the soundtrack pulls you into the world, setting the mood without ever being overbearing. Whether you're wandering through eerie ruins or squaring off against a massive boss, the music always hits just right. This isn't some massive over-the-top experience. It's short, sweet, and it knows exactly what it wants to be. If you're tired of modern games bloated with side content and endless grind, Death's Door is the perfect break. It's the kind of game that feels like it respects your time, no fluff, just pure fun and heart. Shadow Warrior 2. Alright, Shadow Warrior 2 doesn't hold back. It's loud, fast, and absolutely ridiculous in the best way possible. If you're in the mood for a game that throws subtlety out the window and just lets you slice, shoot, and blow everything to bits, this one's got you covered. You play as Lo Wang, a mercenary with a sword, a ton of guns, and absolutely no filter. The story? It's there, sure, but honestly this game is all about having fun. The combat is where Shadow Warrior 2 really shines. You're not just shooting though, yeah, there's plenty of that. You're also slicing enemies into pieces with a katana that feels way too satisfying to use. The game lets you switch between firearms and melee weapons on the fly, and the flow of combat is just perfect. One second you're blasting enemies with shotguns, the next you're cutting through a mob of demons with precision slashes, and it never gets old because the game throws so many weapons at you: chainsaws, plasma rifles, crossbows. If it can kill something, it's probably in the game. The world is split into open, semi-randomized levels that give you a lot of freedom to roam around, find side quests, and explore hidden areas. It's not fully open world, but it doesn't feel as linear as the first game. And the environments, gorgeous. One minute you're slicing demons in a cyberpunk city, the next you're fighting through a lush forest, all with this surreal vibe that makes you feel like you're in some twisted fever dream. Oh, and let's not forget the humor, because Shadow Warrior 2 is packed with it. Lo Wang doesn't take anything seriously, and the dialogue is full of over-the-top one-liners and goofy banter. Not all the jokes land, but it leans so hard into being ridiculous that you can't help but laugh along with it. It's the kind of game where the protagonist delivers bad puns while mowing down hordes of enemies, and it's all the better for it. Still Wakes the Deep. Still Wakes the Deep looks like it's going to be one of those games that grabs you by the nerves and doesn't let go. Imagine being stuck on an offshore oil rig during a massive storm, cut off from the outside world, and oh yeah, something really messed up is happening around you. This isn't just another horror game, it's all about atmosphere, tension, and survival. It's not about throwing cheap jump scares at you, but rather making you feel every second of that isolation and fear. The thing about Still Wakes the Deep is that it seems to focus more on storytelling and immersion than combat. Don't expect a gun or a way to fight back. You'll be running, hiding, and figuring out how to survive while things fall apart around you. Games like this aren't about power, they're about vulnerability, and from what I've seen, this one nails that sense of helplessness. If you're into slow burn horror that plays on your nerves, this game is going to deliver. It's got that same energy as titles like Amnesia or Soma, where the fear builds from what you don't see as much as what you do. Every noise feels like a threat, every shadow could be hiding something, and every second counts as you try to figure out what the hell is going on. The storm isn't just window dressing, it's part of the experience. You'll be dodging falling debris, fighting against strong winds, and trying not to get swept away while figuring out how to stay alive. It adds this layer of chaos to the whole thing, making it feel like the environment itself is working against you. This isn't going to be the kind of game that holds your hand. You'll probably feel lost, confused, and scared, and that's exactly what makes it exciting. If you're down for something that leans heavily into atmosphere and tension without throwing mindless enemies at you, Still Wakes the Deep is shaping up to be a wild, nerve-wracking ride. Absolver. Absolver is one of those games that feels like a hidden gem. If you give it a chance, it'll surprise you. It's part martial arts brawler, part online RPG, and it does things its own way. There's no overwhelming quest log, no massive open world filled with checklists. Instead, it focuses on combat, pure, hand-to-hand tactical fighting, and it's incredibly satisfying once you figure it out. The combat system is the heart of the game, and it's unlike anything else. It's all about learning martial arts moves, creating your own personalized combat deck, and mastering the timing and flow of fights. Every punch, kick, and block feels deliberate. You can't just mash buttons and hope for the best. It's got that dance-like rhythm, where you're reading your opponent's movements, dodging at the last second, and slipping in a counter when they least expect it. If you've ever loved the combat in Sekiro or For Honor, this will hit the same notes, but with its own twist. What's really cool is that Absolver doesn't just teach you moves, you have to learn them by fighting opponents who already know them. Get hit with a certain move enough times and it becomes unlocked for you. It's such a neat way to make progression feel personal, like every fight leaves you a little bit smarter and stronger. The world of Absolver is mysterious and minimalist. It's not about handing you a clear story, it drops you into a strange land with ruins scattered everywhere, and you kind of piece things together as you go. The vibe is really meditative, with quiet, scenic areas that make the fights feel more meaningful when they happen. It's almost like a blend of a martial arts movie and a dreamscape surreal, but in a way that pulls you in. Atomic Heart. Atomic Heart is a strange, bold, and chaotic ride that feels like a love letter to old school shooters. Imagine Bioshock mixed with Soviet-era surrealism, but on some kind of psychedelic trip. It throws you into an alternate 1950s Soviet Union where things have gone very wrong and killer robots, mutants, and weird science experiments are running loose. You play as P3, a gruff, no-nonsense soldier, sent to figure out what the hell happened at a once utopian research facility that's now in complete meltdown, and trust me, nothing makes sense and it's glorious. The game goes hard on style. The environments are filled with retro-futuristic machinery, Soviet propaganda, and bizarre science tech. 1 minute, you're in a pristine research lab filled with weird robot mannequins, and the next, you're crawling through rusted industrial tunnels where everything's trying to kill you. It's unsettling but beautiful, making exploration feel both tense and rewarding. You never really know what's waiting around the next corner, and that keeps things interesting. Combat is a blast. You've got guns, melee weapons, and some freaky special abilities like electrifying enemies or freezing them in place, but the real magic is in how you mix and match everything. Swapping between weapons and powers mid-fight feels fluid, and the game wants you to experiment. Running out of ammo? No problem, grab a pipe and bash a robot's head in. Need a quick escape? Freeze an enemy, then shatter them with a shotgun blast. Every encounter feels dynamic, forcing you to adapt on the fly. The enemies? Freaky as hell. You've got agile humanoid robots, creepy surveillance drones, and grotesque biomutants, all of which make you feel like nothing in this world should exist. Some fights feel chaotic with enemies coming at you from all angles, while others are slower and more tactical, requiring you to really pay attention to how you're managing your resources. And the bosses? Yeah, they don't mess around. Each one is a weird spectacle, both visually and mechanically. If you like shooters with a weird edge, something that takes risks, even if it doesn't always hit perfectly, Atomic Heart is absolutely worth your time. It's got that what the hell is happening vibe throughout, and even when it stumbles, it does so in interesting ways. Dive in with an open mind, and you're in for one wild, unforgettable ride. Robocop Rogue City. Robocop Rogue City hits that sweet spot where nostalgia meets modern gameplay. If you've ever wondered what it would feel like to step into the heavy boots of Alex Murphy aka Robocop, this game makes it happen. It's a gritty, first-person shooter that stays true to the brutal tone of the original Robocop films, complete with all the deadpan one-liners, heavy gunfights, and over-the-top violence you'd expect. But instead of just riding the nostalgia train, it adds depth with exploration, dialogue choices, and some surprisingly engaging moments. The combat feels exactly how you'd imagine being Robocop would. You're slow, deliberate, and unstoppable. Every shot you fire feels heavy, and enemies don't just drop, they explode. You've got the Auto 9 Robocop signature handgun, which can blast holes through walls and send criminals flying. It's not just about running and gunning, though. You can scan environments for hidden details, hack into systems, or even punch your way through obstacles when diplomacy isn't cutting it. There's a satisfaction to every shot and every movement that really sells the feeling of being this indestructible, law-enforcing machine. One thing the game nails is the world of old Detroit. It's a grimy, crime-infested city that feels like a dystopian mess straight out of the original movies. The levels are more than just arenas for combat. They're filled with side objectives, moral choices, and encounters with people who need help or need to be arrested. You can go full on cop mode, arresting criminals and helping civilians, or you can just not care and deal with everything by brute force. The game doesn't judge you either way, which adds a nice touch of freedom to how you play.
The brave men and women of the OCP police force go out and fight to keep us safe.
And let's talk about the dialogue system. It's not just there for show what you say can change how the story unfolds. It's a bit of a surprise, honestly. You expect a Robocop game to just be non-stop action, but there are moments where you're interrogating suspects or dealing with shady corporations, which adds some layers to the experience. Murphy's stoic delivery makes every interaction both awkward and hilarious. You're basically a walking tank trying to have normal conversations with scared civilians, and it works better than you'd think. The game's pace is slower, but it fits Robocop's style perfectly. This isn't a fast-paced run and gun shooter. It's about carefully picking your shots, managing threats, and deciding when to take action. There's a real weight to every decision, whether it's in combat or dialogue, and that makes the whole experience feel a bit deeper than you'd expect from a game about a half-man, half-machine cop. If you're a fan of the old Robocop movies, Rogue City is basically a dream come true. But even if you're coming in fresh, it offers a satisfying blend of shooter mechanics, exploration, and choice-driven storytelling that's hard to put down. It's not perfect, the pacing can feel slow at times, and the humor is very much in that dry 80s action movie style, but if you lean into it, there's a lot of fun to be had here. Stray. Feeling of being a cat. You can do all the cat things: knock over bottles, scratch couches, nuzzle up to robots, and curl up in little nooks for a nap. It's those small touches that make the experience feel so real. The movement is fluid and natural. You'll leap from ledge to ledge, walk along precarious beams, and occasionally get into trouble because, of course, there's no rush. And that's what makes it great. It's a game that invites you to slow down, explore, and just be curious. The world is stunning. This isn't just any cyberpunk city, it's dense, layered, and filled with personality. The streets are cluttered with junk, flickering neon signs, and little details that tell stories without saying a word. There are robots living out routines, some melancholic, others hopeful, and the whole place feels both alive and abandoned at the same time. The game encourages you to explore every corner, rewarding curiosity with little discoveries and hidden areas. There's some light puzzle solving and stealth sprinkled throughout, but nothing too difficult. The puzzles are intuitive and make good use of the environment. You might have to knock over objects to create paths or lure enemies into traps. There are also moments where you need to sneak past these creepy creatures called Zerks, but the game never feels punishing. It's more about immersing you in the experience than throwing difficult challenges your way. Stray isn't a long game, it's the kind of thing you can finish in a few sessions, but that's part of its charm. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and when the credits roll, you'll probably find yourself missing that little cat and its robot friend. It's not about flashy mechanics or complicated systems, it's about creating a unique experience that sticks with you. If you're looking for something different, something quiet, thoughtful, and filled with charm, Stray is definitely worth playing. It's one of those games that stays with you long after you finish it, not because of how hard it was or how much content it had, but because it's just really special. Chants of Sennar. Chants of Sennar is one of those games that sneaks up on you at first. It feels like a beautifully crafted puzzle game, but the deeper you go, the more it turns into something profound. It's all about communication, language, and finding meaning in a world that feels both ancient and otherworldly. The entire experience revolves around deciphering languages from different cultures, and if you're the kind of player who loves uncovering mysteries through exploration and logic, this game will hook you. You start off in this mysterious tower divided into different sections, each inhabited by unique civilizations that don't speak the same language. Your task is to learn their words, figure out their customs, and ultimately bring these communities together. But there are no handy translations or hints. This is a game about paying attention, observing patterns, and piecing everything together yourself. It's not just about solving puzzles, it's about understanding people. What's so cool is that the game never spoon feeds you anything. You have to figure out the meaning of symbols and words through context, kind of like how you learn a real language. You might see a symbol used on a sign, then hear a character say it in conversation, and little by little it starts to click. And when you finally crack the code and understand what's being said, it's incredibly satisfying. The art style is gorgeous, clean, colorful, and full of personality. Each area of the tower has its own vibe, with different architectural styles and color palettes that reflect the people living there. The whole thing feels like a storybook come to life, with a sense of mystery that keeps pulling you forward. There's a meditative rhythm to Chants of Sennar. You're not rushing from one puzzle to the next. It's all about slowing down, soaking in the world, and paying attention to the little details. You're encouraged to explore, talk to NPCs, and jot down notes as you go. The process of learning each language feels organic, and by the time you understand what's happening around you, you'll feel like you've uncovered something meaningful, not just beaten a game. It's not a long game, but it leaves a lasting impression. There are moments of quiet reflection and some subtle narrative beats that hit harder than you'd expect. The whole experience feels like a reminder of the power of language and understanding and how easily we can be divided when we don't take the time to listen. If you're in the mood for something thoughtful, relaxing, and a bit different from the usual action-packed fare, Chants of Sennar is absolutely worth your time. It's the kind of game that doesn't just challenge your brain, it makes you think about how we communicate, how we connect, and what it really means to understand each other. Dave the Diver. Dave the Diver is one of those games that makes you think, wait, how does this even work? And then it just does. It's a weird but delightful blend of underwater exploration, sushi restaurant management, and mini-games, and somehow it all clicks. You play as Dave, a regular guy who finds himself juggling two very different lives, diving into the deep blue to catch exotic fish by day and running a bustling sushi restaurant by night. It sounds chaotic, but trust me, it's the kind of chaos you'll love. The diving sections are super chill at first. You swim through beautiful underwater environments, catching fish, finding treasure, and discovering strange sea creatures, but things start to get tricky the deeper you go. Oxygen becomes limited, stronger creatures appear, and you'll need to upgrade your equipment if you want to make it back in one piece. There's something oddly relaxing about the diving, even when the game throws a giant shark or some deep sea nightmare your way. Then, there's the restaurant side of things, which is surprisingly addictive. You'll work with your chef, Bancho, to create the perfect menu using the fish you've caught. And it's not just about serving food, it's about timing and efficiency. You're pouring tea, taking orders, and plating sushi while trying to keep customers happy. It's frantic, but in a way that feels rewarding when you pull off a smooth night. The game also has a quirky, lighthearted story running through it, filled with charming characters and weird little side plots. One minute you're learning about rare sea creatures, the next you're helping a musician compose a song. It's got that offbeat humor that keeps things fresh, never taking itself too seriously, but still managing to be genuinely engaging. The mix of mechanics keeps you on your toes. One day you're upgrading your harpoon and planning a deep dive to catch rare fish. The next you're learning new recipes, decorating the restaurant, or managing staff. There are also mini-games sprinkled throughout, like boss fights against giant sea creatures or treasure hunts that break up the rhythm in just the right way. What makes Dave the Diver stand out is that it never feels overwhelming, even with all the moving parts. It has that perfect balance of laid-back fun and light challenge. You can dive for hours, experiment with sushi menus, or just chill out and enjoy the goofy story at your own pace. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is like a love letter to the days when video games just wanted to be cool as hell. If you ever played Jet Set Radio or loved the vibe of skating games mixed with killer music and rebellious energy, this one will hit hard. It's all about cruising through futuristic city streets, tagging graffiti, pulling off tricks, and dodging cops, basically making your mark on the world in style. And yeah, it looks as good as it sounds. The first thing that stands out is the vibe. This game oozes style from every corner. The visuals are this crisp, cel-shaded dream, full of neon lights and graffiti-covered walls. It's got that funky, urban look that makes every part of the city feel alive. Every time you skate through a new area, it's like stepping into a music video. And the soundtrack insane. Funk, hip-hop, jazz, electronic beats, it's all mixed perfectly, creating that groove that makes you want to move through the city non-stop. The gameplay nails that old school skating game feel while adding some new tricks to keep it fresh. You've got a mix of skating, grinding, flipping, and even parkour, so getting around feels fluid and fast. You're encouraged to chain tricks together, not just to score points but to build momentum, because nothing feels better than cruising at top speed while pulling off wild tricks mid-air. It's all about flow, and when it clicks, damn, it feels good. Tagging graffiti is where things get interesting. You're not just skating for fun, you're building your crew's rep by leaving your mark on the city. The graffiti system is simple, but it feels satisfying every time you slap a tag on a wall, billboard, or train. The game makes it personal by letting you switch between different styles and create combos of tags as part of your runs. It's like you're not just playing the game, you're painting the city with your own rhythm. And of course it wouldn't be complete without the cops breathing down your neck. As you rack up points and start dominating areas, the heat turns up and the police come after you. It's not about brute force, they chase you down with drones and mechs, forcing you to outmaneuver them with your skills. Escaping a police raid feels like a mini game in itself, and pulling it off makes you feel unstoppable. The best thing about Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, it knows exactly what it wants to be. It's not trying to be some massive open world epic, it's about pure fun. Skating, tagging, vibing to music, and making a mess of the city in the most stylish way possible. No fluff, just that core experience of speed, tricks, and self-expression. If you've missed that type of game, the kind that's all about movement, music, and just feeling cool, this one's for you. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is here to remind you that sometimes all you need is a good beat, some smooth tricks, and a city to leave your mark on. Before Your Eyes. Before Your Eyes isn't just a game, it's an experience that sticks with you long after it ends. It takes a concept so simple, controlling the game by blinking, and turns it into one of the most emotional journeys you'll ever play. You're not just playing through a character's life, you're living their memories, seeing their highs and lows, and whether you're ready or not moving forward with every blink. The whole premise is brilliant. You're placed in the shoes of Benjamin Bran, reliving the story of his life through memories, guided by a mysterious ferryman. The catch: every time you blink, time skips forward. Sometimes it's a few minutes, sometimes it's years, and that's where the magic and the heartbreak happens. Moments you wish could last forever slip away with a blink, and it's impossible to hold on to everything. It hits hard because just like real life, you can't stop time from moving on. What's crazy is how well the blinking mechanic works. You don't just use it to advance the story, it becomes part of the experience. You might be looking at a meaningful moment, wanting to hold on to it a little longer, but your eyes betray you, and suddenly you're somewhere else wondering what you missed. It creates a sense of nostalgia and regret that feels way too real, and it makes the story feel personal. You're not just watching Ben's memories, you're in them. Visually, the game is simple but effective. The art style feels soft and dreamlike, perfectly fitting the idea of reliving someone's memories. And the music, it pulls everything together, adding just the right amount of emotion to every scene without ever feeling overbearing.
Love it. No matter how much you like it.
Before Your Eyes isn't a long game, you can finish it in about 90 minutes, but it makes every second count. It's the kind of experience that makes you think about your own life, the moments that slip by, and the memories you wish you could revisit. It's not just about the story it tells, it's about how it makes you feel, and that's what makes it so special. If you're looking for something unique, meaningful, and unforgettable, Before Your Eyes is a must-play. Just be prepared, it's going to hit you right in the feels. And yeah, you might cry, but that's kind of the point.
That's just how this thing works.
Cuphead. Cuphead isn't just a game, it's an experience that punches you right in the nostalgia and then challenges you to stay on your toes. This one's not for the faint of heart, but if you love a tough as nails challenge wrapped in some of the most beautiful, hand-drawn animation ever, you're in for a treat. It's like stepping into a 1930s cartoon, complete with jazz music, surreal characters, and that old-school charm, but don't let the cute art style fool you. Cuphead will test your patience and reflexes in ways you won't forget. The gameplay is all about precision. It's a run-and-gun shooter at its core, with platforming sections thrown in between relentless boss fights. And those bosses? Oh man, they're the heart of the game. Each one feels like a unique event, with crazy transformations, weird phases, and bullet hell patterns you need to master. 1 second, you're fighting a giant carrot, and the next you're dodging attacks from a transforming airplane or an evil clown riding a roller coaster. It's chaotic, and figuring out each boss's pattern is like solving a frustratingly fun puzzle. The controls are buttery smooth jumping, dashing, parrying, and firing off attacks all feel tight. Every mistake you make feels like your fault, which is both motivating and infuriating in the best way. Bet you'll die. A lot. But the sense of satisfaction when you finally land that perfect dodge or beat a boss that's been driving you crazy is worth every second of frustration. What really makes Cuphead stand out though is the art and music. The whole game is hand-drawn in that old school cartoon style and it looks incredible. Every frame is filled with life and detail, from the way characters bounce to the expressive animations in every boss fight. The soundtrack is pure jazz goodness with energetic big band tunes that perfectly match the chaotic rhythm of the game. It's the kind of game where you almost want to lose just to hear the music a little longer. There's a lot of satisfaction in Cuphead's simplicity. It doesn't drown you in complex mechanics or unnecessary fluff, it just gives you tough fights, precise controls, and a beautiful world to conquer. It's hard, yes, but never unfair. The game respects your skill, and when you finally pull off a win, it feels earned. If you're into games that demand patience, precision, and perseverance, and you appreciate some killer art and music along the way, Cuphead is absolutely worth the ride. Just be prepared to get your butt kicked. A lot. The Saboteur. The Saboteur is one of those games that somehow slipped through the cracks, but if you dive into it today, you'll find a hidden gem. This game brings a unique vibe by setting its open world adventure in Nazi-occupied Paris during World War II, where you play as Sean Devlin, an Irish race car driver turned resistance fighter. Now, that's a hell of a concept, right? What sets the Saboteur apart is its use of color, literally. When you first enter areas controlled by the Nazis, everything is drained of life, represented by a black and white aesthetic. But as you liberate neighborhoods and complete missions, color returns to those areas, and it feels incredibly rewarding. It's a simple mechanic, but damn, it works. This game leans heavily on stealth, sabotage, and some chaotic action. You'll find yourself climbing buildings like Assassin's Creed and engaging in gunfights that get messy fast, perfect for players who enjoy a bit of unpredictability. It doesn't have the polish of newer AAA games, but that's part of its charm. The vibe is gritty, jazzy, and oddly fun, thanks to the soundtrack and noir-inspired visual style. Though it's got flaws, some clunky mechanics, and a few odd AI moments, but if you're looking for an open-world game that does things differently, this one is worth the shot. There's something special about taking down an enemy installation with dynamite and sneaking away just as the Eiffel Tower lights up in the background. If you're tired of cookie-cutter open worlds, the Saboteur will give you something fresh and memorable. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning is one of those games that deserved way more love than it got. It dropped back in 2012, and while it came out around the same time as heavyweights like Skyrim, this RPG did its own thing, and honestly, it did it damn well. It's got one of the most satisfying combat systems you'll ever experience in an open-world RPG. If you're into fluid, fast-paced action where every swing of your sword or blast of magic feels powerful, Amalur will spoil you. The world itself is vast, colorful, and packed with lore, designed by none other than R.A. Salvatore, the fantasy author behind the Drizzt Do'Urden novels. The game has this unique mix of high fantasy and vibrant visuals, setting it apart from the usual dark, gritty tones we see in open-world RPGs. From lush forests to dangerous caverns, the environments just feel alive, and exploring them never gets old. What really makes Amalur underrated though is the freedom it gives you. You can completely respec your character on the fly, switching from a sneaky rogue to a spell-slinging sorcerer or even a bruiser wielding massive hammers. And unlike a lot of RPGs, it rewards experimentation instead of locking you into a boring archetype. The story might not hit you with deep emotional moments, but the world building and lore suck you in if you give it the time. Sleeping Dogs. Sleeping Dogs is the definition of a cult classic, and man, if you missed it, you missed out on something special. This game takes the open world formula we all know, think GTA, but spices it up with an incredible setting Hong Kong. It's gritty, chaotic, and just oozing with atmosphere. The story throws you into the shoes of Wei Shen, an undercover cop infiltrating the triads, and it pulls no punches when it comes to drama, betrayal, and brutal combat. What makes Sleeping Dogs shine is its focus on hand-to-hand combat. If you're a fan of games like the Yakuza series, you'll feel right at home. The martial arts mechanics are tight, brutal, and honestly, they never get old, especially when you slam a thug's head into a fish tank mid-fight. It's got that street brawler energy, but it's also got car chases, shootouts, and even undercover missions that add a ton of variety. It's just straight up fun from start to finish. Beyond the action, the game nails its open world design by blending the urban sprawl of Hong Kong with quieter cultural moments. You'll find yourself getting lost inside activities like street racing, betting on cockfights, or even just grabbing some dim sum at a local food stall. It's these little touches that make the world feel alive and different from the usual American city sandbox. It's wild that this game didn't blow up like it should have, maybe because it didn't have the marketing push or big name recognition. But trust me, Sleeping Dogs is one of those games that sticks with you long after the credits roll. It's the kind of game that makes you wish there had been a sequel, and honestly, if you're itching for an open world experience with heart-pounding action and an unforgettable story, this is the one to try. Dying Light. Dying Light took the open world formula and flipped it literally by adding parkour into the mix, and damn, it works so well. This game drops you in Harran, a fictional Middle Eastern city overrun by the undead, and the way it handles exploration makes it feel unlike anything else. Instead of sticking to streets or cars, you're running along rooftops, vaulting over fences, and making every move count because the ground is where things get real dangerous. The day-night cycle here, brutal. During the day, zombies are slow and manageable, but the second the sun sets, all hell breaks loose. The infected become faster, stronger, and way more terrifying, and suddenly that little rooftop you were standing on doesn't feel so safe anymore. There's this constant tension between freedom and fear, and it's what makes Dying Light stand out in the sea of open world games. It's not just exploration, it's survival. Combat also slaps. It's weighty, gory, and chaotic with an emphasis on melee weapons that you can modify to add electricity, fire, or even toxic effects. Guns are scarce, so every encounter feels raw, like you're always just barely scraping by. And the missions? They keep things interesting with a mix of scavenging, saving survivors, and unraveling a surprisingly decent story. Despite its massive open world and dynamic gameplay, Dying Light often flew under the radar, probably overshadowed by the flood of zombie games at the time. But it deserves a second chance because few open world games nail the balance between exploration and fear as well as this one. Plus, if you haven't already, the co-op mode is insanely fun. There's nothing like running for your life at night with a friend, screaming your head off as a volatile chases you across the rooftops. This one deserves a spot on your backlog if it's not already there. And hey, with the sequel out, it's the perfect excuse to dive back in. Biomutant. Biomutant is an ambitious open-world game that brings a unique blend of kung fu action, RPG elements, and post-apocalyptic exploration. You play as a customizable mutant animal, armed with both melee weapons and firearms, while also unlocking strange abilities like telekinesis or the power to shoot bubbles. It's quirky, colorful, and filled with charm, making it stand out from more serious open-world games. The world of Biomutant is absolutely worth exploring with its vibrant biomes, mutated creatures, and relics of a lost human civilization scattered everywhere. You're free to craft your weapons, align with different factions, and even shape the outcome of the story through a morality system. And though it tries to pack in a lot, sometimes a bit too much, it offers a solid mix of exploration and fast-paced combat. Rage 2. Rage 2 might not have taken the world by storm, but damn, it's a wild ride that deserves way more attention. Developed by Avalanche Studios and ID Software, this game throws you into a chaotic, open-world wasteland where everything explodes, and I mean everything. It's got that Mad Max vibe mixed with neon punk aesthetics, making it look both brutal and colorful at the same time. What sets Rage 2 apart is its combat. The gunplay is fluid, fast, and ridiculously satisfying, exactly what you'd expect from the makers of Doom. It's not just about shooting though, you also unlock insane abilities like ground pounding enemies into dust or using a force push to send them flying. Combine that with weapons like the Grav Dart Launcher, which lets you pull enemies toward walls, cliffs, or each other, and you've got a recipe for non-stop chaos. The open world is packed with bandit hideouts, convoys, mutants, and crazy characters that keep things unpredictable. Admittedly, the story feels like an afterthought, and the world itself can seem a little empty at times, but who cares when the combat is this good? Rage 2 isn't about deep storytelling, it's about blowing things up and having a blast while doing it. Elex. Elex is one of those love it or hate it open world RPGs, but if you stick with it, you'll find an experience unlike anything else out there. Developed by Piranha Bytes, the same team behind the Gothic and Risen series, that throws you into a strange, post-apocalyptic world where science fiction collides with fantasy. Think jetpacks, swords, futuristic guns, and magic all mashed together. Yeah, it's a weird mix, but that's exactly what makes Elex so interesting. The world is massive and full of factions, each with its own philosophies and playstyles. Whether you join the Berserkers, who reject technology and rely on magic, or the Outlaws, who live for chaos and scavenging, your choices shape the way the story unfolds. It's one of those games where exploration feels rewarding. Every ruin or abandoned settlement holds some loot or lore that deepens your understanding of this bizarre world.
We bow to no one.
Combat, though, can be a bit clunky, and the game doesn't hold your hand. Right from the start, enemies are brutal, and you'll probably die a lot until you figure out how to survive. But if you're the type of player who enjoys a challenge and likes to feel your character's progression, Elex delivers. The jetpack alone adds a fun twist to exploration, letting you scale cliffs and bypass obstacles in creative ways. Cry Primal. Cry Primal is one of the more overlooked entries in the Far Cry series, but it deserves way more credit for how boldly it shakes up the formula. Instead of guns and cars, you're dropped into the Stone Age, playing as Takar, a hunter trying to reunite and protect his tribe. It's a fascinating take on the open world genre, focusing entirely on primitive weapons like spears, bows, and clubs. The setting is what really makes Primal stand out. The world of Oros feels wild and alive, with mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and dangerous wildlife lurking around every corner. You're not just a hunter here, you're also prey. Survival plays a major role, and you'll need to gather resources to craft weapons, tame animals, and even build out your village. The animal taming mechanic is especially cool, letting you ride beasts or send your wolf to take out enemies for you.
Great expanse of land.
Sure, it lacks the modern chaos of other Far Cry games. There's no wild gunfights or helicopters here, but it offers a more grounded experience. The brutal hand-to-hand combat and immersive environment make it feel like a fresh change of pace from the typical formula. It might not have been everyone's cup of tea at launch, but Far Cry Primal deserves a second chance. If you're looking for an open-world game that throws you into a completely different era and makes you fight to survive, this one is worth revisiting. Just Cause 2. Just Cause 2 is pure, unfiltered chaos, and that's exactly what makes it so damn fun. Set in the sprawling open world of the fictional island nation of Pano, this game gives you one job: cause as much destruction as possible. You play as Rico Rodriguez, an agent with a grappling hook, a parachute, and zero concern for subtlety. What makes Just Cause 2 stand out is how it embraces freedom and insanity. Want to tether a car to a helicopter and fling it into a military base? Go for it. Feel like surfing on top of a jet mid-flight? Absolutely. The game isn't about deep storytelling, it's about giving you a giant sandbox where explosions and stunts are your playground. Kanao is massive, offering deserts, jungles, snowy mountains, and cities to explore. Every corner of the map hides some ridiculous opportunity for destruction, and the grappling hook lets you approach it however you want. It's the kind of game where you'll get sidetracked for hours just messing around with vehicles and physics. Sure, the missions can get repetitive and the story isn't exactly memorable, but that's not the point. Just Cause 2 is all about creating your own moments of madness, and few open world games do that as well as this one. If you want a game where blowing things up is always the right answer, you need to give this one a shot. GreedFall. GreedFall is a hidden gem in the world of RPGs, offering an open world experience that feels like a blend of classic BioWare storytelling and fresh exploration. Set in a 17th century inspired fantasy world, you play as D. Sarday, a diplomat trying to forge alliances, uncover secrets, and find a cure for a mysterious plague. The game's world is filled with magic, political intrigue, and ancient mysteries, making it perfect for players who love a story-rich experience. What makes GreedFall stand out is its focus on choice and consequence, whether it's deciding which factions to ally with or how you approach quests through diplomacy, stealth, or combat. Your decisions shape the world around you. The characters you meet are well written, with layered personalities, and forming alliances or enemies with them makes every interaction feel significant.
After this little swim, you could always try to pull the trigger.
The game's combat is solid, with a mix of swordplay, magic, and ranged attacks, but where it really shines is the world building. Every area you explore has a distinct feel, with dense forests, mystical ruins, and bustling towns that reflect the game's mix of colonial and fantasy elements. Sure, the game doesn't have the massive budget of a AAA title, and you'll notice that in some animations and limited enemy variety, but it more than makes up for it with heart and ambition. GreedFall is one of those games that might not have gotten the attention it deserved at launch, but it's well worth your time. If you're into story-driven RPGs with meaningful choices and an immersive world, this one's definitely worth a shot. Maneater. Maneater is one of the weirdest and most entertaining open world games out there, and that's exactly why you need to give it a chance. You play as a shark, yes, a shark, swimming through the waters of the Gulf Coast, devouring everything from fish to humans. It's part action RPG, part survival, and a whole lot of absurd fun. What makes Maneater special is how it embraces its ridiculous premise. As you level up, your shark evolves in crazy ways, growing bone armor, electrical fins, or even toxic glands. It's pure, over-the-top madness, and the game encourages you to become the apex predator of the ocean. The map offers plenty to explore, from swampy bios to deep ocean trenches, and every area has its own challenges and creatures waiting to bite back. The story is framed like a reality TV show, complete with a sarcastic narrator commenting on your carnage. It's hilarious, weirdly engaging, and makes the game's chaos even more enjoyable. While the combat can get repetitive, there are only so many ways to chomp down on prey. It never really gets old, thanks to how absurdly fun the whole experience is. The Hunter Call of the Wild. Imagine walking through a dense forest at dawn, mist hanging low, birds chirping in the distance, and then, somewhere in the far brush, the faint crack of a twig. That's the Hunter Call of the Wild. It's not your typical open world game. It's quiet, methodical, and peaceful until it isn't. This game isn't about fast-paced action, it's about immersing yourself in nature, learning patience, and feeling the thrill of tracking prey across stunning landscapes. What really makes Call of the Wild stand out is the atmosphere. Whether you're in the forests of Hirschfelden or the snowy wilderness of Medvtaiga, every inch of the world feels alive. Animals react realistically to your movements and sounds, so hunting here isn't just aim and shoot, it's an art of careful planning. You'll spend a lot of time crouched in the brush, scanning the horizon and second-guessing every step. If you're looking for non-stop action, this isn't your game. But if you want an experience where every successful hunt feels earned, this one nails it. The world isn't just a backdrop, it's your playground with everything from small birds to massive moose roaming free. And even if hunting isn't your thing, exploring the environment on foot or on your ATV is incredibly relaxing. Sure, not everyone has the patience for this kind of game, but if you give it a chance, the Hunter Call of the Wild offers an experience that's both serene and intense, with just the right amount of tension to keep you hooked. It's the kind of game you didn't know you needed until you find yourself totally lost in it. Ghost Recon Wildlands. When it comes to open world experiences, Ghost Recon Wildlands delivers something that few other games attempt an entire country as your playground. Set in a massive version of Bolivia, this game offers everything dense jungles, snow-capped mountains, sprawling salt flats, and bustling villages. The sheer scale of the open world is mind-blowing, and it gives you complete freedom to tackle missions however you want. Want to go in guns blazing? Sure. Prefer sneaking through the jungle with silenced weapons? Go for it. Or maybe you just feel like hopping in a helicopter and scouting out your next objective from the skies. It's all up to you. The game gives you so many ways to approach every situation that no two missions feel the same. It's a tactical shooter at heart, but the open world structure lets you play at your own pace, whether solo or in co-op with friends. The dynamic world adds another layer of immersion. You'll run into patrols, civilians, or cartel members mid-mission, forcing you to think on your feet. And the variety is impressive. One moment you're creeping through a forest at night to capture a drug lord, the next you're speeding across a desert while dodging gunfire. It's the kind of game where the open world setting isn't just a backdrop, it's an essential part of the experience. Yonder, the Cloudcatcher Chronicles. Sometimes you just want an open world game without the stress of combat, and that's exactly where Yonder the Cloudcatcher Chronicles shines. This game takes the usual open world formula and strips it down to its most relaxing elements: exploration, discovery, and community building. It drops you on the lush island of Jamia, filled with vibrant forests, peaceful beaches, and charming towns, and then it simply lets you explore at your own pace. What makes Yonder special is how it encourages you to live in the world rather than conquer it. Instead of battles, you'll spend your time helping villagers, farming, crafting, and solving little environmental puzzles. There's an almost therapeutic quality to it, like playing Animal Crossing, but with way more room to roam. The freedom to explore is the real heart of the experience, with each biome offering new things to see and quests to complete. There's a light story about clearing away a mysterious fog called the Murk, but it's not the driving force exploring the island and making it your own is. The game rewards curiosity and makes even the smallest discoveries feel meaningful. If you love open worlds for the sake of exploration and immersion, Yonder delivers that without overwhelming you with objectives or enemies. It's a peaceful, feel-good take on the open world genre, perfect for when you need a break from combat-heavy games. If you're in the mood to slow down, breathe in some virtual fresh air, and just enjoy the scenery, Yonder the Cloudcatcher Chronicles is a game you shouldn't overlook. Ryzen 3 Titan Lords. Ryzen 3 Titan Lords throws you into a pirate-infested fantasy world, blending swashbuckling adventures with RPG elements. At its core, the game is about exploration, scouring islands, ancient ruins, and dangerous jungles in search of treasure and power. You take on the role of a nameless hero whose soul has been stolen, and your journey is all about finding a way to reclaim it, but that's just scratching the surface. The game's world is packed with secrets, and it doesn't hand them to you on a silver platter. Unlike many modern open-world games, Ryzen 3 expects you to explore on your own. Quest markers? Minimal. You'll have to follow clues from conversations, make mental notes of landmarks, and dive into caves that may not even have a quest attached just because you can. It's got that figure it out yourself vibe, which feels refreshing if you're tired of open worlds that hold your hand every step of the way. combat is tough and can be unforgiving early on, but the deeper you go, the more satisfying it becomes. Sword fights, muskets, and spells, each approach has its own learning curve, and the enemies don't pull punches. And then there are the factions. You'll need to align yourself with groups like the Demon Hunters or Mages, each offering distinct powers and storylines. Your decisions carry weight, with faction alliances and reputation shaping how NPCs treat you and what quests you unlock. Immortal's Fenyx Rising. Immortal's Fenyx Rising is like a breath of fresh air in the open world genre. It takes the familiar elements from games like Breath of the Wild exploration, puzzles, and freedom and wraps them in a vibrant world inspired by Greek mythology. You play as Fenyx, a mortal who finds themselves thrust into a journey to save the gods from the powerful titan Typhon. But what makes this game stand out is how it embraces a lighthearted, playful tone while still delivering solid gameplay. The world of the Golden Isle is stunning, divided into several regions, each themed around a specific god like Ares or Athena. Every area feels unique and offers a blend of platforming challenges, puzzles, and combat encounters. You'll climb cliffs, glide across open skies, and solve environmental puzzles in shrines called Vaults of Tartaros, each rewarding you with new abilities or upgrades. These vaults scratch that brain teaser itch without ever becoming frustrating, keeping the pace breezy and fun. Combat in Immortals is fast and fluid with a satisfying mix of swordplay, bows, and divine powers like summoning a giant hammer from the heavens. You can unlock and upgrade abilities, allowing for some crazy combos, especially when you start chaining aerial attacks or hurling boulders at enemies. It's flashy and accessible, but offers enough depth to keep things engaging throughout the game. What sets Immortals apart from more serious open world titles is its humor and charm. The narrative is narrated by Zeus and Prometheus, who banter constantly, adding a layer of comedy to the adventure. Some jokes land better than others, but it keeps the tone light and easygoing, which works well given the game's colorful and whimsical presentation. It might not have been a massive hit at launch, but Immortals Fenyx Rising is a game that's perfect for those looking for an open world experience without the emotional weight of something like The Witcher 3. It's all about exploration, discovery, and having fun, something a lot of open world games tend to forget. If you're after a game that doesn't take itself too seriously but still offers a big, beautiful world to explore, this one deserves a shot. Middle-earth Shadow of War. Middle-earth Shadow of War takes the foundations of its predecessor, Shadow of Mordor, and cranks everything up to 11. It drops you right into the heart of a sprawling open world, with multiple regions across Mordor and beyond, each teeming with orcs, fortresses, and chaos. What makes it stand out is the Nemesis system, an evolving mechanic where enemies remember their interactions with you, hold grudges, and even come back stronger if they defeat you. No two playthroughs feel exactly the same because your enemies adapt and grow, sometimes turning personal rivalries into epic, unexpected moments. The open world design here is all about giving you choices. Want to storm an orc stronghold with an army of your own, or sneak in and assassinate key targets one by one. The game lets you approach every challenge your way, as you capture and defend fortresses, recruit orcs to your cause, and carve out your own slice of Mordor. You feel like you're building your own story with each battle. Combat is fast, fluid, and brutal, combining swordplay, stealth, and supernatural abilities. Executing perfect counters and chaining attacks feels incredibly satisfying, especially when you're surrounded by a swarm of orcs. Add in the ability to dominate and recruit enemies to your side, and the game opens up in exciting ways, turning former enemies into valuable allies is a special kind of power trip. The world of Shadow of War is dark, atmospheric, and surprisingly varied. From snowy peaks to fiery volcanic landscapes, each region feels distinct and filled with things to do, like hunting down collectibles, challenging enemy captains, or uncovering ancient artifacts tied to the lore of Middle-earth. The story has its highs and lows, but it nails that epic fantasy vibe, giving fans of Tolkien's world plenty to dive into. The Outer Worlds. The Outer Worlds delivers an open-world RPG experience that feels like a throwback to classic Fallout games with a vibrant spacefaring twist. Developed by Obsidian Entertainment, the minds behind Fallout New Vegas, it offers a world full of quirky characters, sharp dialogue, and player-driven choices that shape the story. Instead of one sprawling map, the game spreads its open world across multiple planets and space stations, each with its own ecosystems, factions, and stories to uncover. What makes the Outer Worlds stand out is the freedom it gives you in shaping your character and the world around you. Whether you want to be a charming con artist, a brute who solves everything with a shotgun, or an engineer obsessed with tinkering, the game supports your playstyle. Your choices matter not just in dialogue but also in combat encounters and faction relationships. There's always more than one way to complete a mission, whether through diplomacy, stealth, or chaos. The tone of the game is quirky and humorous, often taking jabs at corporate greed with its dystopian but colorful world. From the moment you step off your spaceship, you'll meet bizarre NPCs like employees who speak in mind-numbing corporate jargon or scientists with ridiculous experiments. This mix of humor and dark themes creates a unique vibe that sets it apart from other open-world RPGs. Exploration is a treat too. Each location, whether it's a lush forest moon or a dusty space outpost, feels distinct and filled with secrets. Loot side quests and lore await around every corner, and the game constantly rewards curiosity. The combat, while not groundbreaking, is engaging with a variety of weapons ranging from plasma rifles to shrink rays, all of which can be upgraded or modded to suit your playstyle. Though it's not as large scale as some open world RPGs, The Outer Worlds makes up for it with its tight storytelling, interesting characters, and the freedom to approach missions your way. If you're after an open world game that values choice, humor, and exploration, this one is absolutely worth a chance. Scarlet Nexus. Scarlet Nexus offers an open-world experience with a twist blending RPG elements, fast-paced combat, and a cyberpunk-inspired setting with a heavy dose of anime flair. It's set in a futuristic world where strange mutants called Others descend from the sky, and humanity's last line of defense is a group of elite soldiers with psychic abilities. You play as either Yudo or Kasan, two members of the Other Suppression Force OSF, and each character's story offers a different perspective on the unfolding events. While Scarlet Nexus isn't a traditional open-world game, its semi-open design invites exploration across sprawling urban environments. Think large cityscapes, research facilities, and post-apocalyptic zones that encourage you to wander off the beaten path. Scattered throughout these areas are side missions, lore items, and materials to enhance your weapons and abilities. Exploring between combat sequences offers some downtime to dig into the world's story and deepen your relationships with party members. The combat is where the game truly shines. It's fast, flashy, and rewards creativity, mixing melee attacks with telekinetic powers. You can hurl cars, lampposts, and even chunks of buildings at enemies, creating chaotic, satisfying combos. On top of that, you can temporarily borrow abilities from your companions like invisibility, pyrokinesis, or increased speed, adding layers of strategy to every fight. The game encourages experimentation, and the difficulty ramps up in ways that keep things exciting. Another standout feature is the bond system, where spending time with your teammates unlocks new abilities and deeper character interactions. These moments add emotional weight to the game and make the characters feel more than just combat partners. They become part of your journey. Though the open world structure is more segmented than sprawling, Scarlet Nexus offers enough freedom exploration to scratch that itch for players who enjoy RPG elements within a dynamic environment. If you're looking for a game that delivers tight combat mechanics with a side of story-rich exploration, Scarlet Nexus is worth diving into. Mafia 2.
About time you showed up.
Mafia 2 is an open-world game with a heavy focus on storytelling, and it nails that cinematic mobster movie vibe perfectly. Set in the 1940s and 50s, you play as Vito Scaletta, a young war veteran trying to climb the ranks of organized crime in the fictional city of Empire Bay. The game isn't about causing chaos for the sake of it, it's about living through Vito's journey, experiencing the highs and lows of a life bound by loyalty, betrayal, and ambition. What sets Mafia 2 apart from other open world games is how committed it is to its narrative. The city of Empire Bay feels alive, with snowy streets in winter and bustling diners and bars in the summer, but the game keeps the focus on Vito's personal story. This isn't a playground of side activities, it's a period piece where every mission feels like another chapter in a movie. And that's part of the charm. You won't be flooded with endless distractions. Instead, the world serves as a beautiful atmospheric backdrop to a tightly written story. The combat mixes satisfying gunplay with brutal hand-to-hand fights, and the driving mechanics capture that classic 1940s feel where every car has weight and power. The attention to detail in everything from radio broadcasts to clothing styles helps immerse you in the era, making you feel like you've stepped into a classic gangster film.
The working man's a sucker, that's for damn sure.
EVERSPACE 2. EVERSPACE 2 takes the open world formula into the vastness of space, blending fast-paced dogfighting with RPG elements and exploration. Unlike your typical space sim, this game focuses more on action and storytelling than complex flight mechanics, making it feel like an open world game set among the stars. You pilot a variety of customizable ships, travel through asteroid fields, derelict stations, and distant planets, all while upgrading your gear and uncovering the mysteries of the galaxy. One thing that stands out is the freedom it gives you. Each sector of space is packed with things to do, side missions, hidden loot, puzzles, and intense battles. Whether you're raiding outlaw bases, salvaging wrecked ships, or hunting for rare resources in dangerous nebulae, EVERSPACE 2 always rewards exploration. There's something exciting about just flying off in a direction, not knowing what you'll stumble across next. Combat is fast and fluid, with a satisfying mix of lasers, missiles, and unique ship abilities. Each ship class offers a different playstyle, whether you prefer nimble fighters or heavy-hitting gunships. Upgrading your ship with better weapons, shields, and perks adds an RPG-like progression system that feels rewarding as you progress through the game. If you're looking for an open-world experience but want something beyond the usual RPG or sandbox, EVERSPACE 2 offers a refreshing change of pace. It's a gorgeous, fast-paced space adventure where exploration feels meaningful and combat always keeps you on your toes. Perfect for anyone who's ever dreamed of being a space rogue. The Council.
Lord Mortimer asked me to join him.
The Council is a hidden gem in the world of narrative-driven games, blending historical intrigue with a supernatural twist that feels fresh and unique. Released in 2018, it places you in the shoes of Louis de Richet, a young man invited to a mysterious island where powerful figures from across the globe, like George Washington and Napoleon Bonaparte, are gathered. But this isn't your typical mystery game. It's packed with conspiracies, cults, and powers that go way beyond what you'd expect from a historical setting. What makes the Council special is its RPG mechanics mixed into the narrative format. You don't just make choices, you level up skills like psychology, manipulation, and occultism, which impact how you navigate conversations and uncover secrets. Every choice has real weight, and how you build Louis's skills can drastically change the outcome of interactions, unlocking unique paths, and sometimes putting you in tough spots.
Please, be my guest, Mother.
The episodic structure keeps the suspense high, and the supernatural elements slowly weave into the story, adding layers of mystery that keep you guessing. It's not afraid to take risks with its story, and that makes the Council feel like a breath of fresh air for fans of narrative games who want something with a bit more depth and replayability. The Council may not have reached a massive audience, but for those who enjoy immersive storytelling with RPG twists, it's a game that deserves way more recognition. It's an ambitious, intelligent adventure that stands out from the crowd and offers a memorable experience for anyone willing to dive into its world of secrets and power plays.
And secrecy are both pillars of the organizations for which we work.
You know, Louis, I've only just now realized that I've been drawn here
To the Moon. To the Moon is one of those rare games that doesn't need complex mechanics or flashy graphics to make an impact. It's all about the story, and it hits hard. Released in 2011, this indie gem is a simple, narrative-driven experience where you play as two scientists who travel through the memories of a dying man named Johnny. Their job, to fulfill his final wish by altering his memories, even if it's only in his mind. The game unfolds as you dive deeper into Johnny's past, uncovering bits and pieces of his life, his love story, and the moments that shaped him. It's both heartwarming and heartbreaking, and the deeper you go, the more emotionally invested you become. The storytelling here is masterful. It doesn't rely on dialogue, heavy cutscenes, or big action sequences. Instead, it builds an emotional journey out of quiet, everyday memories, capturing the beauty and sorrow in life's small moments. The pixel art style adds a nostalgic charm. And the music, man, the music is something else. The soundtrack is hauntingly beautiful and perfectly matches the story's tone, enhancing every emotional beat in a way that few games manage to do. To the Moon is short and sweet, but it leaves a lasting impression. For anyone who appreciates a powerful, moving story, this is one game that shouldn't be missed. It's an emotional experience that reminds you of the impact a good story can have, and it's truly a hidden gem in the gaming world. Heaven's Vault.
I dig stuff up.
Heaven's Vault is a hidden gem for anyone who loves exploration, mystery, and language. Released in 2019, it's an archaeological adventure that follows Aaliyah, an archaeologist uncovering the lost history of an ancient civilization across a mysterious nebula. But this isn't your usual action-packed adventure. Heaven's Vault is about patience, discovery, and piecing together the past through language and artifacts. The heart of the game is its unique language mechanic. As Aaliyah, you decipher an ancient language word by word, making educated guesses and building your understanding slowly. Each phrase you translate brings you closer to understanding the people and culture that once inhabited this strange universe, making it feel like you're truly unraveling an ancient mystery. It's incredibly rewarding and feels genuinely immersive because your choices in translation shape how you interpret the story. The game's setting is equally fascinating, a mix of science fiction and ancient history. You're not just uncovering artifacts, you're sailing through rivers in space, visiting forgotten moons, and meeting characters who all have their own take on history and truth. The world feels alive and reactive, with choices that affect not just your journey, but how other characters perceive you and how the story unfolds. Heaven's Vault didn't make huge waves in the gaming world, but it's a thoughtful, intelligent experience for players who love the thrill of discovery and the beauty of language. It's a slow burn, but one that rewards curiosity and careful exploration, making it a truly unique and memorable experience.
But will the story I put together be the truth?
Oxenfree. Oxenfree is one of those indie gems that gets under your skin with its eerie atmosphere and brilliant storytelling. Released in 2016, it's a supernatural thriller where you play as Elex, a teenager who heads to an abandoned island with her friends for a night of fun, only to end up unlocking something far darker. What starts as a casual night of exploring turns into a twisted journey through time loops, ghostly encounters, and unsettling mysteries. The dialogue in Oxenfree is a standout. It's natural, quick, and you're given real-time choices on how Elex responds to her friends, which shapes her relationships and how the story unfolds. It makes the characters feel real, like you're part of a friend group dealing with forces beyond their understanding, and the art style, with its minimalistic yet haunting visuals, creates this dreamy, unsettling vibe that perfectly matches the game's tone. One of the most unique aspects of Oxenfree is the use of a radio. You tune into different frequencies to communicate with strange entities, unlock clues, and even alter reality. It's a mechanic that adds tension and a sense of dread, as you're never quite sure what you'll hear or what will happen next. The story dives into themes of grief, guilt, and forgiveness, giving the game a depth that's rare in horror-themed games. Forgotten Anne.
Be on your guard, man.
Forgotten Anne is a beautifully crafted game that feels like stepping into an animated movie. Released in 2018, it's set in the Forgotten Lands, a magical world where lost items, socks, lamps, toys come to life as Forgotlings, each with its own personality and backstory. You play as Anne, an enforcer tasked with keeping order in this world as she tries to uncover secrets about her own past and the true nature of the Forgotten Lands. The hand-drawn art style is stunning, with each scene looking like it's lifted straight out of a studio Studio Ghibli film. It's colorful, whimsical, and filled with charm, making every area you explore feel alive. The animation brings the world and its characters to life in a way that makes you want to stop and take in every detail, while the orchestral soundtrack elevates the experience even further, adding to the game's emotional depth.
Watch your step, little hawk.
What sets Forgotten Anne apart is its moral choices. You're constantly deciding how to treat the Forgotling, shaping Anne's path and how others perceive her. These choices aren't easy, and the game doesn't shy away from making you feel the weight of your decisions, especially as the story reveals layers about loyalty, sacrifice, and the desire to belong.
We belong in the real world with the humans.
I'm afraid you're the one running out of options, little hawk.
Stop!
Where the water tastes like wine. Where the Water Tastes Like Wine is an unusual, hauntingly beautiful game that celebrates storytelling itself. Released in 2018, it's a journey through Depression-era America, where you play as a drifter traveling the country, collecting and sharing stories with the people you meet. This isn't a game about fighting or high-stakes action, it's about exploring, listening, and gathering tales that reflect the hopes, hardships, and dreams of the era. The game's structure is simple yet captivating. As you wander across the map, you encounter a cast of colorful characters, each with their own story to tell. The stories range from eerie folktales and ghostly encounters to tales of love, loss, and resilience. The more stories you collect, the more you can share with others, shaping your journey and the way characters open up to you. It's a unique, almost poetic approach that feels like you're uncovering fragments of a forgotten history. The art style is striking, with a hand-drawn, vintage quality that captures the mood of the time. The soundtrack, steeped in folk and blues, adds to the game's atmospheric, almost dreamlike quality. And the writing is phenomenal, with each tale feeling like a piece of Americana folklore, from the surreal to the deeply human. There's even voice work from well-known actors like Sting, adding depth to the characters you meet. Where the Water Tastes Like Wine isn't for everyone. It's slow, contemplative, and centered around the joy of storytelling rather than action. But for those who appreciate rich narratives and the power of words, it's a unique experience that leaves a lasting impression. It's one of those hidden gems that reminds you of the magic of a good story, making it a game well worth seeking out. Road 96.
Still looking for it.
Road 96 is a road trip adventure that's all about freedom, choices, and the thrill of the unknown. Released in 2021, it puts you in the shoes of a teenager on the run, trying to escape from a fictional authoritarian country. Each journey you take is procedurally generated, meaning every playthrough is a new experience with fresh encounters, unexpected events, and different outcomes. It's like a series of unpredictable road trips, each filled with unique characters and moments that make you feel like you're on an actual journey. What makes Road 96 special is how it combines narrative depth with player-driven decisions. Along the way, you meet a range of characters, rebels, truck drivers, law enforcers, and fellow teens, all with their own stories and motives. Your choices influence not only how these encounters play out, but also the broader story of the nation's struggle. The game doesn't shy away from tough topics, exploring themes like freedom, loyalty, and survival, but it does it in a way that feels personal and grounded.
Looking for someone called Zoe. John.
The visuals have a vibrant, stylized look that makes each landscape memorable, from dusty highways to quiet forests and bustling border crossings. And the soundtrack? It's filled with synth and indie vibes that perfectly capture the feeling of being on the open road, adding to the game's nostalgic, rebellious atmosphere. Road 96 is a hidden gem for anyone who loves narrative-rich games that give you the freedom to shape your own story. It's a journey that's emotional, immersive, and packed with moments that feel meaningful, even if you're just a kid trying to hitchhike your way to freedom. It's a game that stays with you long after you've crossed the border, capturing the essence of adventure and the power of choice in a way that few games manage to do.
Try something, Mr. President. If they do, I'll crush them once and for all.
Beyond Two Souls.
So tired.
Beyond Two Souls is a cinematic, emotionally driven game that explores life, death, and everything in between. Released in 2013, it's an interactive drama by Quantic Dream, where you play as Jodie Holmes, a young woman with a mysterious link to an otherworldly entity named Aiden. This bond gives her unique abilities, but it also isolates her from others, making her life a complex journey of trying to understand her own identity while navigating the challenges that come with her powers. The game's story is told in a non-linear fashion, jumping between different periods of Jodie's life, from her troubled childhood to her time in the CIA, to her attempts to escape a government determined to exploit her abilities. The episodic, fragmented storytelling adds a layer of intrigue as you piece together the events that have shaped Jodie's life, and Ellen Page's performance as Jodie adds real emotional depth, making every moment feel genuine and impactful. What sets Beyond Two Souls apart is the connection between Jodie and Aiden. You can switch between controlling Jodie and Aiden, with Aiden's abilities allowing you to interact with the world in unique ways, moving objects, protecting Jodie, or even influencing people's actions. This duality brings a fresh dynamic to the gameplay, blending supernatural abilities with a grounded, personal story. The game may not have appealed to everyone, but Beyond Two Souls is an unforgettable experience for those who love story-rich games. It's a game that invites you to walk in someone else's shoes to feel their struggles, and to confront the complexities of identity and connection. For anyone who values a game with a strong narrative and character-driven experience, Beyond Two Souls is a hidden gem worth revisiting. Blackwood Crossing.
None of them are any good!
Finn!
Blackwood Crossing is a narrative-driven adventure that delves into the complexities of sibling relationships, grief, and the transition from childhood to adulthood. Released in 2017, this first-person game places you in the role of Scarlet, a teenager navigating a surreal journey alongside her younger brother Finn. What begins as an ordinary train ride quickly transforms into a magical and emotional odyssey, exploring themes of love, loss, and the bonds that tie us together. The game's storytelling is its standout feature. As Scarlet, you traverse a dreamlike world filled with symbolic puzzles and enigmatic characters, each representing facets of the siblings' shared past and inner turmoil. The narrative unfolds through environmental storytelling and interactions, allowing players to piece together the story's deeper meanings at their own pace. This approach creates an immersive experience that resonates emotionally, especially for those who have experienced the complexities of family dynamics.
It's called Finland.
Visually, Blackwood Crossing employs a vibrant art style that enhances its surreal atmosphere. The environments are richly detailed, blending the mundane with the fantastical to reflect the protagonist's emotional states. The character designs and animations further contribute to the game's unique aesthetic, making each scene visually engaging and thematically relevant. While the gameplay primarily focuses on exploration and puzzle solving, it's the emotional depth and narrative nuance that leave a lasting impression. Blackwood Crossing may not have garnered widespread attention upon its release, but for those who appreciate introspective storytelling and emotional journeys, it's a hidden gem worth experiencing.
What's he doing there? He wants to take you away from me. Please stay!
Last Day of June. Last Day of June is one of those games that quietly breaks your heart. Released in 2017, it's an emotional puzzle game that dives into themes of love, loss, and the longing to change the past. You play as Carl, a man grieving the tragic loss of his wife June in a car accident. Through a series of memories and paintings, you're given a chance to relive that day and try to change the events in the hope of saving her. But here's the thing, it's not a straightforward fix it and everything's fine kind of story. This game really leans into the complexity of loss, and every attempt to rewrite the past reveals new layers to Carl and June's story. The art style is simple yet beautiful, with characters that have these haunting eyeless faces which somehow makes them feel more universal, like they could be anyone. The visuals, paired with a stunning soundtrack by Steven Wilson, bring this dreamlike, almost melancholic vibe that keeps you feeling both hopeful and heartbroken as you play. What Last Day of June does so well is that it doesn't give easy answers or let you win at grief. Every new attempt to change the past brings a different kind of heartbreak or consequence, driving home the reality that some things can't just be fixed. But it's the journey of trying, of seeing Carl's undying love for June and his willingness to do anything to be with her again that makes it feel so raw and human. It's one of those hidden gems that hits deep because it's not about saving the day, it's about confronting loss, cherishing memories, and finding closure in a way that feels painfully real. For anyone who appreciates narrative-driven games with a powerful emotional punch, Last Day of June is a must-play. It's a game that stays with you long after the credits roll as a gentle reminder of love's enduring strength and the acceptance that some things are beyond our control. Virginia. Virginia is a unique, dreamlike experience that blends mystery with surreal storytelling in a way few games dare to attempt. Released in 2016, it's a first-person adventure that feels like playing through a silent, cinematic thriller. You play as Anne Tarver, a young FBI agent sent to investigate the disappearance of a boy in the small town of Kingdom, Virginia. But here's the twist, there's no dialogue at all. The story is told entirely through visuals, body language, and the game's hauntingly beautiful soundtrack, which brings this eerie, suspenseful mood to every scene. The lack of dialogue means that every gesture, every glance, and every cut in the cinematic pacing becomes incredibly important. It's like watching an old school detective show, but you're piecing together meaning through details and atmosphere rather than words. The visuals have this minimal, retro art style that makes each frame look like a perfectly crafted shot, and the story itself is cryptic, full of Lynchian twists and surreal scenes that blur the lines between reality and dreams. One of the game's strongest points is how it uses its silent storytelling to tackle themes of ambition, loyalty, and the cost of doing the right thing in a system that's far from perfect. It's a story with layers, leaving you to interpret the mystery not just of the missing boy, but of Anne's own internal struggles and relationships with her colleagues, especially her partner Maria. The game shifts in time and tone, making you question what's real and what's in Anne's head, creating an experience that's open to interpretation and worth a replay. Virginia isn't for everyone. It's slow, abstract, and unapologetically strange, but if you're open to a game that challenges traditional storytelling and invites you to look between the lines, Virginia is a beautiful, haunting journey that sticks with you. It's a hidden gem for those who love stories that leave you thinking, even after the screen fades to black. The White Door. The White Door is one of those quietly intense games that pulls you into the mind of someone trying to make sense of a fractured reality. Developed by Rusty Lake and released in 2020, it's a simple, minimalist game that combines point-and-click mechanics with an intimate, story-driven experience. You play as Robert Hill, a man suffering from severe memory loss who wakes up in a mental health facility. Each day follows a structured routine, but as you progress, you start uncovering pieces of Robert's past and the traumatic events that led him here. What makes The White Door so gripping is its blend of simplicity and depth. The black and white visuals are clean and stark, reflecting Robert's detached, broken mental state, while the split-screen layout gives a unique perspective on his daily life versus his memories. It's a fascinating approach that keeps you engaged, as one side of the screen represents the mundane routine and the other reveals the hidden emotions and memories trying to break through.
Know what to do, Mr. Hill.
The game has this haunting, almost hypnotic quality to it. The soundtrack and sound effects add to the eerie, unsettling atmosphere, making you feel like you're slowly unraveling a mystery that's both psychological and deeply personal. Each memory you uncover brings a piece of Robert's past back into focus, and by the end you feel like you've been on an emotional journey that's surprisingly raw for such a minimalist game. Night Call. Nightcall is one of those rare games that dives into the noir genre with a fresh, modern twist. Released in 2019, it's a narrative-driven detective game where you're not some hardened detective or a street-tough investigator, you're a Parisian cab driver who's been pulled into a murder case as an unlikely informant. You're just trying to get by, driving through the quiet, dimly lit streets of Paris, picking up passengers who may know something or might be hiding something. The vibe in Nightcall is everything. Each passenger who steps into your cab brings their own story, their own secrets, and often their own pain. You're more than just a driver, you're an accidental confidant listening to people's stories and piecing together clues about a serial killer lurking in the city. And the game gives you freedom in how you approach each conversation, whether you're gentle, curious, or just quietly observant. Every interaction can reveal something new or keep a passenger closed off. The art style is pure noir, with black and white visuals and just the right amount of shadow, making every scene feel gritty and real. There's this sense of isolation, of being part of the city but removed from it, driving through its underbelly and hearing its heartbeat through the lives of the people you meet. The soundtrack is haunting with soft jazz and ambient sounds that add to the game's intimate, late-night atmosphere. What makes Nightcall so unique is that it doesn't hand you the answers. You're not some action hero, just a person in a cab, navigating conversations, remembering details, and hoping you're making the right choices. It's a slow burn, and not everyone's story connects directly to the case, but that's what makes it feel real. It's a journey into the lives of strangers, and each playthrough brings something a little different. Nightcall is for those who love narrative depth and the quiet thrill of piecing together clues in a dark, introspective world. It's a moody, thoughtful game that doesn't need explosions or chases to hold you. It pulls you in with the power of human connection and the mystery that lingers in every ride through the city. It's one of those underrated gems that reminds you of the quiet power of storytelling. The Juggler's Tale. A Juggler's Tale feels like stepping into a dark, enchanting fairy tale brought to life. Released in 2021, it's a side-scrolling puzzle adventure that tells the story of Abby, a puppet trying to escape from a cruel world where her every move is controlled by strings. Set in a beautifully handcrafted theater-like world, the game immerses you in Abby's journey for freedom from her puppet master and the many obstacles that hold her back. The twist here is that Abby's strings aren't just symbolic, they're literally attached to her, meaning you have to navigate puzzles that take her limitations into account. Obstacles like branches or beams become tricky to pass as Abby's strings can get caught, forcing you to think creatively about how to help her move forward. It's a clever mechanic that reflects the game's deeper theme of control and freedom, making you feel Abby's struggle in every move she makes.
Free for the length of a staged fight.
The narration is like a storyteller weaving a tale for you, guiding Abby's journey while commenting on her every action. It's playful at times, but there's an unsettling edge to it, as if the narrator isn't entirely on Abby's side. This adds a layer of tension, as you're never quite sure if the narrator's helping or hindering her journey. The art style, with its storybook visuals and shadowy, atmospheric scenes, enhances the feeling that you're watching a puppet show with a haunting twist. A Juggler's Tale may not be widely known, but it's a memorable, heartfelt experience that dives into themes of independence and resilience in a beautifully subtle way. It's one of those games that reminds you of the power of storytelling, with puzzles that make you think and a narrative that lingers long after the curtains close.
Also hold you back. Sometimes life hangs on a thread,